God prepares. God prepares. That is our topic for today. God prepares. And we are saying we shall be dwelling on Jonah, and we shall also be dwelling on Elijah the prophet, the Elijah the Tishbite. And we are saying that God prepares for us. Whatever situation we are in, God has already made preparations for how we shall be preserved and for how we shall triumph in whatever situation. So let's start with Jonah. We all know the story of Jonah. He's given an assignment by God to go to Nineveh, that great city, to preach to Nineveh and to tell them that God is displeased with their conduct and is going to punish them and destroy the city in 40 days' time. Instead of Jonah going to Nineveh as asked, he flees from the presence of God and jumps into a ship that is headed to Joppa. While in the ship, he is fast asleep. While he's fast asleep, there is a tempest, a storm that scares the sailors out of their wits, and they see that death has approached, and they panic and cast lots and pray to their gods. And then they wake Jonah up and ask him to come and also pray to his God. As they cast lots, they realize that the reason for the storm is Jonah. And Jonah explains to them and says, yes, it is true. I run away from the presence of God because God has asked me to go preach to Nineveh, and that is why we are having this storm. So he asks them to throw him into the sea. At first they are reluctant, but later on they agree and throw him into the sea. But as they throw him into the sea, they are scared because they don't know what this means for them. Would it mean that God is going to punish them even more? But when they throw him into the sea, they are surprised to find that the storm has already calmed. Meanwhile, God had already prepared, God had already prepared, God had already prepared a fish to swallow Jonah. So Jonah is in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. And later on, God asks the fish to vomit Jonah on dry land. So Jonah is already on the land of Nineveh. So he starts to preach. So the first preparation here is the fish, that God prepared the fish to swallow up Jonah. Number one, transportation. Because of the fish, Jonah is able to be transported to Nineveh. And because of the fish, Jonah is preserved from the sea and from imminent death in the sea. So the fish vomits Jonah on dry land, and Jonah starts to preach it to Nineveh. But the Nineveh people listen and they start to fast. The king proclaims a fast, and the whole city enters into a fast, which God honors. And God says, because they've fasted, because they've humbled themselves and prayed, and because they've repented, then I shall not destroy Nineveh. But Jonah is not happy with the God declaring that he's not going to punish the city anymore. And Jonah sits at the east side of the city and waits to see if the city will burn or whatever means God will use to destroy the city. And while he's seated there, God prepares, and again now we come to the second prepare. God prepares a gourd that acts as a shade for Jonah to shelter him from the sun and from the vagaries of weather. So Jonah is exceedingly glad about the gourd. But while he's enjoying the gourd, a worm, God prepares also a worm, and that is the third prepare, and the worm starts to eat the gourd. And in the morning when Jonah wakes up, he finds that the gourd has withered. And then God sends us prepares a vehement east wind, which causes the sun to scorch, so that Jonah is very uncomfortable and he begins to pray and to wish that he could die. So, two bad things that God has prepared. God has prepared the worm that eats the gourd, and God has prepared the vehement east wind that makes the sun to scorch. God has prepared. But now God is telling Jonah, why do you feel bad about the gourd, which has lasted only 1 day? Whereas you are not feeling mercy for Nineveh. That is a great city that has been here for long. If I would destroy Nineveh, how many people would perish? What about the land? What about the assets? What about the businesses? How much destruction would that be? And God helps Jonah to see things in that way. We are talking about God preparing. That God prepares the fish as a means of transportation and as a means of saving Jonah from death. Then he prepares the gourd so that Jonah is comforted and he enjoys the shade. Then he prepares the worm and the vehement east wind that make Jonah uncomfortable. Then we come to the prophet Elijah the Tishbite. Elijah has pronounced that there's going to be a famine. 1 Kings 17 has pronounced that there's going to be a famine, that the famine will last 3.5 years, that it will not rain. Then God tells him, go to the brook of Cherith because I've commanded the ravens there to feed you. He goes to the brook of Cherith, he eats, he drinks, he eats because the ravens bring him food every morning and every evening. Ravens that God has commanded to bring him food. And then he takes water from the brook of Cherith. But one day, the brook of Cherith begins to dry up. And God has prepared already the widow of Zarephath. So God says, go to the widow of Zarephath because I have prepared her already to feed you for the remaining period of the famine. And Elijah goes and finds this woman and tells the woman, go prepare for me a little cake first and some water and bring to me. Because God has said that the flour will never finish and the oil will never finish until this famine is past. So the widow woman is spared from death, her son is spared from death, and Elijah the Tishbite is preserved. They are eating from the flour that never runs out. They are eating from the oil that never runs out because God had prepared the widow of Zarephath to feed Elijah, and God had prepared the little oil and the little flour that it would never run out until after the famine is past. We are talking about God preparing. So when it comes to our daily lives, we meet very many challenges every time, and every time the challenges we meet are unexpected, and we are unexpected, and they are frightening. But God has already prepared. Before something happens to us, God has prepared already. He has prepared already provision. He has prepared already shelter. He has already prepared preservation. He has already prepared comfort. He has already prepared luxury. He has already prepared all those things. Whatever it is we need in whatever situation, He has already prepared for our preservation, for our preservation, for our preservation, and also for our comfort, and also for our sustenance, and also for our provision, for our provision. So God has already prepared for us for our sustenance, for our provision, for our preservation, for our healing. Whatever situation, He has already prepared because He knew already that this situation would come our way, and He already provided a way of escape. So that is what it is. It is comforting to know that God has prepared already and that He is in the business of preserving us and of taking care of us, and that He's interested in every single detail of our lives. Thank you very much for listening to me. Be blessed as God prepares beautiful things in your life. Kindly share, subscribe, comment. Thank you very much, and bye bye.